I gospeled him. So we did talk. He got in the car and he was praying, and I said, this is what God had for you. You forgot the thing and whatever. But then I thought, maybe God wants to teach you to work for it. Let's go in there. Why don't you go find the room? And he was more hesitant. Go in there. Go find the room right now. I'm taking you there. Go in and just say to the person, the advisor of the club, I forgot my slip. I'm really sorry. Is there anything I can do to join? No. What if they say no? What if they say no? Then that's what God had for you. But try your hardest. Try hard. Glorify God by trying hard. Work hard. You can do what you want. He went in there and figured that out and got his little, it wasn't a big deal, but he did get it.
So you didn't fix it, but...
He did. I gave him the tools to fix it, yeah. I said I wasn't going to. He wanted me to go in and he had to go in by himself. So, just in those little circumstances for them that are suffering, when we're so tempted to fix it first, go to God first with them. Say, let's see what God has for you. This maybe is what God had for you. Or maybe God wants to teach you to work hard and to try better. Or maybe there's a solution. Let's pray. Let's ask God for wisdom. Take them and their suffering to the Lord. And then joy, kind of the opposite. I want to talk about how do we celebrate our circumstances. Obviously, we all know the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is our circumstances, and joy as a Christian is a commandment for us. In Philippians 4:4, we're told to rejoice in the Lord always. There's a lot of things that I don't feel like rejoicing over, but Scripture commands us to. So are we thankful and acknowledging God even in those times of suffering, or are we only focusing on Him in times of blessing? So a lot of Christians, it's kind of cliche to be like, oh, I'm just so blessed right now. I just got this house. I'm like, it's such a blessing. Or I got this new car. I'm so blessed by this new car. It's always in terms of something good. But if we read Matthew 5, when Jesus is talking about what God has blessed, it's blessed are the poor, blessed are the needy, blessed are the poor, the brokenhearted. God is calling them blessed. It's a totally different thing than, Christian cliche of what is blessed. Both are blessings, definitely, but we don't tend to see anything negative as blessings. Kind of in our culture, are we passing that on to our kids? Something bad happens, or even something good. Do we give credit to the Lord? I don't know if I'm good on time, but I want to talk a little bit about how we celebrate. Traditions, family, holidays, birthdays, baby showers. Are we rejoicing? Are we generous? People in our church having a baby, are we coming with a meal? Are we telling our kids, hey, we're going to cook a meal. Katie had a baby. We're so excited. We love babies. We're going to go to the baby shower. Is it constantly, we're just focused on ourselves and our money? I can't afford to do that. I'm not going to bless them. We just keep everything for ourselves, and then when we have to bring something to community group, it's like Spam nuggets or something gross. Are we blessing? Let our kids... I didn't want to say something anyone had actually brought, and I hope nobody brought Spam nuggets, but I don't think that exists. But anyway, are we teaching our kids that we're generous, that we're giving, that we're celebrating with people? The holidays, is it, this is kind of a harder one, but is it about, are we counting down every single day to what an elf did instead of focusing on Jesus? Sorry, elf on the shelfers, but is that where our focus solely is? Do those kids know that you worked really hard for those presents? Santa didn't? Are they able to give joy that God has blessed your family with these presents, or is the credit just always somewhere else? Are you teaching your kids to be thankful, to rejoice, to be generous with the things that you have? So we are in San Diego. We're so blessed materially, but sometimes, if we're comparing ourselves to most of the world, we really, really are. But money is tight for a lot of us, and so just being joyful with our money, being generous, our kids pick up that spirit. They really do. They see when you give the worst of your things to everyone else, and you keep the best for yourself. They pick up on that. They pick up on if you're not happy about, Christmas present. Is it Christmas time? Is it just such a burden to you? Or are you joyful that it's Jesus' birthday, making it joyful? It's not about the money. It's about your spirit, being generous, rejoicing with those in your community that are having babies, that are, doing all those things. I'm trying to be really fast,
That's good. Let's give you a few minutes for... No, that's good, babe. We do our kids a huge disservice if we try to get them out of any type of hardship whatsoever. We're not setting them up for adulthood because that's our world, right? It's not easy. And so it's good. Now, why don't we give you a few minutes, like literally 10, for some tabletop discussion. And the question would be, could you write this way? The question would be, what are some of the barriers you may have as we've gone through these 4 values? You may have identified some barriers that exist for you, some of the ones that are kind of hardest for you at this stage of your life. Discuss those, or identify and discuss those with your table. We'll just take 10 minutes, and we'll have ample time for the next session, which is going to be quite a bit more practical, and you guys may have questions. We'll do that as well. But so what are the barriers that maybe you've identified in some of these values, and discuss those together, and work through those, process through those together. 10 minutes, where'd they go? And if you need to use the restroom or whatever, that's the time to do it as well.
I was just gonna say, because you were tired, I was like, actually, you're tired.
Saturday, I feel like it should be easier. You should be well rested. Yeah, yeah.
I would give you $1,000
2 days ago.
right now
Halfway through the
for
weekend.
like 3 hours. Just sitting
The lights are You guys kids have a show.
no, it's pretty awesome.
Our son, like, this is like self-esteem.
Yeah.
Do you guys do the allergy thing too? In allergy season at our house, right at the end of summer, all 3 of us just go all at once. It's a lucky thing.
Yours are pretty awesome. They kind of sealed the deal, you know what I'm saying?
It's so hard to say. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So, with such a little guy. I don't know, Ashley and I talking the tiny bit that we did while we were going through this. There's those 4 things, there's some that we're more successful at in life. The value marriage thing, easy is probably too easy a word for it. It's an easy one for us, though. We really love being married. Yeah. I can tell.
It's like your whole life. I stay on my finance since my first with that all day. Just like turning that off. It's like hard. Super
Yeah. Or coworkers even. Sure.
white mode. Although the whole time I should. I know, I probably started like just telling me like that I actually feel super refreshed after a date. It's always so worth it. So much work.
Right. Push right through it, yeah.
I just want to go take a nap. Let's just go nap in the car.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys just come around the corner and sleep in the car. I was like,
Yeah, that's it. Like, yeah. Sure. Yeah, so it's not so much a conscious choice to not do something, it's just like at the end of it all. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just like thinking about it. Yeah. Right. definitely for us too is sort of the perspective on being a married couple, like without distractions, has changed, and I think it's become like more tangibly valuable to us than it was. You know, it's easy to take it for granted when we have all the time before kids. But yeah, just like you're talking about, like you see that opportunity on the horizon to hang out. Like my parents are coming into town next week, and like that obviously comes with challenges, and it obviously is super great as well. You know, in ways. But one, you know, my parents are obsessed with George and want to hang out with him all the time. So we normally send him with them for like a whole night, at least once while they're here. And like, you know, right. And when they scheduled this trip, I was like already thinking about like that particular. That's gonna be so great.
But it's awesome to do.
Yeah, right. And they sort of think that about us too. Yeah, like it's gonna be great to hang out with you guys. But like, we'd rather just have George.
We felt very much like this is really small time for the rest of his life. He's done really hard. He's out. He's going back to school in August. So hopefully he knows how to get out.
Exactly.
But I can totally understand him.
Space is all of a sudden.
Yeah.
The child. And it's good. Wasn't worried.
Right.
Can I pray for you?
Yeah.
Father God, I pray for every control that you
They're pretty indirect about it, but you can
that they
tell.
would feel guilty or anxious or nervous or anything like that, that you have placed them in their jobs where they are right now. I ask that they would trust you and have a conversation with Aaron's mom about whether disciplining my son or not, that they would have that, and if not, that you'd be working on her heart to learn how to love you by disciplining Micah. And I pray for Micah that you would be working his heart, drawing him closer to you.
Yeah.
I pray that during the summer months that you give Rachel, that you would give her about next year.
That's extreme. Right, and
I mean, I just got like a Facebook
inconvenient
thing
to
from a friend,
crazy
and she was
amount.
like, you can be a music teacher starting March 1st. And I was like,
We're definitely
let's do
there.
this! Like, I can do this! I
Especially
was
with
like,
another kid on
oh,
the
it's
way
not
now.
the time,
It's,
you know? And like, you always have that.
Yeah, it's just gonna
happen.
happen.
It's not.
You know, one way or
March 1st is
We're
definitely
waiting
not the
for
time.
like
She was like, I'm going to be out of town.
things that may or may not happen, like as far as a job and some questions that are supposed to be answered. You know, then we get to decide what to do. It's really
I
intense.
know, but
Time,
just like
you
every
know,
season
the
of
one
life,
bedroom,
figuring out what's
especially with George getting older.
If you walk by him.
That's the death zone. Like 4:30 a.m. So when George wakes up. Yeah. Oh, it's morning. It's morning. Yeah. And of course he stands up in his crib and starts saying, "Dad, Dad." That's what he says every morning, right on the other side of the bed. Dad. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, take opportunity now.
It's been kind of a natural thing for us so far. And both of us, that was kind of hammered into us from people that we both valued independently of one another before we got married. You know, that was, and my parents put a really, really high priority, not just on doing that, but on like telling my sister and I that they were doing that all the time. You know, without being cool about it. My parents would say stuff like that to us all the time. My dad would say, "I love your mom more than anybody else in the world, including you guys." You know.
Hey everybody, so good job on the table talk. We're gonna wrap it up. We want to make sure that we are keeping you guys on the schedule. So if you have babysitters and stuff, just be respectful of that time for you guys. So here's 2 more people to win these 2 more books. Amy, it was you, you already Oh, this is Jessica's new devotion, and it's for families to do together. It's 40 devotions, and this is a great one. So here, I got 2 of them. The Kvatchnik.
I knew you can like pronounce it.
Okay.
It took her too long to read.
Yeah, I know.
That's you guys, and the
I never.
Hey guys, so we're going to start session 3, and so this session is going to be more just dealing with parenting. This is more open-handed issues. It's not like Christians have to do this or something like that, different than session 2 where these are what Christian families look like. These are just different ideas or different philosophies or practical help that you can take or not take. So first we're just going to start out, I want to talk a little bit about different parenting philosophies for when you have infants and toddlers. I am a preschool teacher this fall. I'm going to be a director of a preschool, so I've studied early childhood education. If you have at all, you've heard about different ideas or goals as far as culturally what you're more predisposed to doing with your children. Basically, what you're going to value more in them is independence or interdependence. We might call it more independent would be maybe like scheduling versus attachment parenting. So I want to talk a little bit about that for some of the parents. You're probably already making decisions about that, which way you're going to go. And there's controversy surrounding that, in that I feel like moms and dads, but especially moms, somebody's always trying to tell you how to get your kid to sleep, how to feed them, how long to nurse for, whatever. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone thinks that they're right. The bottom line is you need to have an opinion and you need to think you're right. So study it. Kind of look at them. You know, you don't need to, not for everybody else, but for you. It's going to be really hard if you pick and choose from different philosophies. You're going to be frustrated. So for example, and also I just want to say, neither of these is Christian, the Christian way. We liked scheduling our kids. That's what worked for our family. That's worked for my personality. I did study all the philosophies, and that's what I want to do. So when people would come to me like, oh, you're the meanest person in the whole world, how can you let your baby cry? I could let my baby cry because I had a specific goal. It didn't, their opinions didn't really bother me, but it's really hard if you haven't studied anything, you haven't formed any opinion. You're probably going to try everything. It's going to be frustrating. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of help you kind of see both philosophies so that you can choose them and be, consistent in your approach. So, for example, with the sleeping and the crying and all of that, if you espouse more to an attachment philosophy of parenting, that is more, maybe you're more into baby wearing, you want to meet your baby's needs whenever you feel like they have them as far as eating or sleeping goes, you're kind of pro-family bed or co-sleeping, you don't agree with letting your baby cry it out to fall asleep, those different types of things, you kind of identify more with attachment parenting. That's fine, that's great. That's what you feel like. I want to encourage you as moms, talk over with your husband, make sure you're on the same page together. Not everyone wants to co-sleep or have a family bed. We've done some marriage counseling where people, 3 years into the marriage, the husband literally wants a divorce, cannot handle this anymore, and the mom is 100% sure this is what's best for their family. They're just totally not on the same page. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal when you're in it, but talk it through, kind of get on the same page with the philosophy of parenting that you're going to have as far as the attachment parenting, the sleeping, the scheduling, those type of things. A lot of you guys have already probably done that, but even if you haven't, think it through, and then think through the results. So, for example, if you are really into the attachment parenting, the baby wearing, you value interdependence over independence, and that's how you're training your child all day long to be dependent on you, to be dependent in your family, that's what you feel is best. Then when it comes time to leaving your child in childcare, there's going to be specific results that are going to result from that type of parenting, right? They're going to be horrified to be apart from you. It's going to be hard on those childcare workers. Think that through. If sleeping through the night is your goal, you've read some books on parenting, you want to have the baby cry it out, that's what, this is what is important for you. You feel like sleep training, this is what you're going to do, then the result will be your child probably will cry at night, letting your child cry. Decide that together before you start doing it. I think that it's really hard on a baby for every single night, it's something different, it's hard on your marriage, you're constantly frustrated, nothing seems to work. Research those philosophies a little bit, talk it over with your spouse, get on the same page, and then be confident in your choices. Don't let everybody's opinion sway you. You don't have to try everything. I just want to say there's not one, neither of those is Christian, okay? If every single woman in your church has her baby in a sling and you seriously like hate that, that's fine. Sling is not Christian. Don't do it. I don't like slings either. I don't want babies in my bed. I always am scared about it. My husband's, I don't want him to sleep on them. It's big. It's hard. I was scared about it. We didn't do co-sleeping. You know, I know some people are like, that's so mean or whatever. You have to just figure out your parenting philosophy with those in mind. The scheduling, get on the same page as your spouse, and then be confident in your decisions. We'll have question and answer time, but I just kind of wanted to have you think that through and then think through the results. So if you are, for example, a proponent of attachment parenting and those things, think it through. So if you value interdependence, but you know you're going to go back to work and your child's going to be in daycare and you know you're going to put them in school, think through valuing interdependence their whole first 2 years of life and then abruptly changing that. Think through what those ramifications are going to be. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? Like just don't do what feels good to you in the moment. Kind of have a game plan for those baby, toddler years. There's tons of different websites, books to help you with that practical piece. Just remember, do what's best for you and your family. Neither way is Christian. Don't be swayed by everybody's opinions. And if you have specific questions about that, we can do some more at Q&A. So now we're going to talk about discipline.
We've already talked about it a bit. This is just a little more practical. So we're just talking about this for a little bit. Talk a little bit about schooling. It's kind of one of the issues, right? And we'll leave time for Q&A if you have. So in terms of discipline, obviously controversy over spanking versus not spanking. So just do timeouts. You just restrict privileges. You know, take the kids' video games away or whatever. The point is, every kid is different. Every parent is different. Every life stage, age group is different. And so there's no one cookie cutter way to discipline any and all kids. And I think, you know, we talk about all kinds of legalisms in the church. I think discipline can be one of the legalisms in the church. Like, this is how you do it, and for every case and for across the board. And I think that could become a legalism and a law that was never meant to be. It could be, if you create a system of disciplining your child, that may be great. It might be a tool that serves the church. Maybe. It also might suck, you know. And so, you know, just realize that, hey, we take from the scriptures what it means to, as we dug into even just a little bit today, bringing up our kids in the training and instruction of the Lord. But disciplining is certainly one of those things. But there's no one cookie cutter method for disciplining. It's not that easy. I mean, if only it was that easy, right? But it's not. It's something you have to live out. It's something you have to work through with your spouse and with your community. So again, the goal in disciplining our kids, because they do need discipline, because they don't come out like Jesus. The goal is to disciple them, to get them back on track, to correct course, to keep pointing them back to Jesus. The goal of discipline is not punishing them for being a sinner. It is correcting them. So spanking is a method. It is a biblical method. I've already given the biblical case for spanking, but let's talk about the practical aspects of how you go about spanking. Because, boy, we've seen a lot of examples of spanking is biblical. You hate your son if you don't spank, and they are really like just abusive. What they mean is abuse is biblical, and it's not. So how do you go about spanking? These are just very practical things. First of all, we would recommend, we think it's best and better to, we're not prescribing this as law, we think it's best and better as a practical suggestion to not use your hand if you're going to spank, that you actually have something else like a wooden spoon or whatever. Parents' hands, I think, are greatly used for other ways to love your children, and I think it's helpful to your child to actually have some other type of tool or utensil if they do need to get spanked on their bottom and spanked on their bottom. that fleshy, fatty part of their body, where it certainly does sting. But anger, don't spank out of anger. This is a hard one, right? We talked about this at one of our tables. Like, oh, dang, this is hard. If you're going to spank, you cannot spank out of anger. That gets definitely onto the side of something that's more abusive than it is loving, something that's more hurtful than it is helpful. And so, don't spank out of anger. Don't spank out of frustration. If you cannot spank your child calmly and lovingly with a level head, do not spank your child, period. It's not good and helpful for them. So just don't do it. Because it's detrimental. It's not helpful. And spanking, if it's going to be done, should only be done lovingly. And so anger, frustration is out. It should be done lovingly and calmly. Again, the goal is correction and restoration. The goal isn't further division. The goal isn't further strife, further chaos, further anger. It is correction. It is restoration. So their sin has brought them, again, away from Jesus and outside of that circle of trust. And you need to bring them back. You need to correct course, bring them back in. You need to shepherd them. In a very priestly, lovingly, calm way, shepherd them back into reconciliation with both you and in alignment with how God wants them to live. It's done lovingly and it's done calmly, even when it involves spanking. And so it's a really big point. So, what do you do when your kid resists spanking, right? Are we the only family in the room that's had this issue of spankers? We're the only family. Our kids are the only ones that resist. No, right? It's kind of a little thing they like to do, right? So what do you do? Honestly, our biggest issue with this is with our now 14-year-old, who is otherwise kind of a golden boy in some ways, but boy, that kid did not want to get spanked. And he...
Not right now. No, we're not spanking.
No. At least not often. No, I'm just kidding. I'm spanking at all. When he was a little kid, he hated spanking. So the reality of the matter is, look, part of this parenting thing is to hopefully empower you guys to be the parents. Like, take back the reins as parents. And the reality is, with a kid who is so wound up and so strong-willed and fighting and resisting being disciplined, look, I'll be the hard voice, you'll be the little soft voice. Somebody's got to win. Okay? It's either going to be you or it's going to be your child. Somebody has to win here. And somebody's got to be the one that is actually going to be in control. Somebody has to win. And I would espouse that it needs to be you guys as the parents. Okay? Because if not, we got to stop picking on Johnny. If little Danny, is anybody's kid named Johnny? I sure hope not. We've been killing the poor kid. Little Danny, is anybody's kid named Danny? Good, Danny. Well, that little Danny figures out if he freaks out enough about the prospects of getting a spanking and he doesn't get a spanking, guess what little Danny's going to do 10 out of 10 times? He'll freak out. He's going to do whatever he's got to do to get his way, just like he does with anything else in life to get his way. And so somebody's got to win. And I'll tell you, just in our own experience, I can remember with our first child, it was like Hell Week. You know, Hell Week, again, sorry, that's a football term, but they don't call it Hell Week anymore. It's kind of not PC. But it's a horrible, it's like the hardest week of the season where it's just grueling. You do like 2-a-days, that's what they call them now, 2-a-days, where you go 2 times and it's just so hard. And the coaches used to be really mean and really, it's like, for those that needed to quit and not play football, that was the week to get them to opt out because it's going to be so hard, right? There's that time in a kid's life always for the parent. It is like, this is the hardest week of the child's life, and you just simply have to get through it. It might be extra crying where they're freaking out. It might be a few more spankings. It might be you winning the battle of the wills. Okay, you've got to win. I'm telling you, it doesn't last forever. Every parent goes through it, but you don't check out of it. Stay in it for the good of the kid. In order to love the kid well, do not take the easy way out. Stick it out. And every parent goes through it. We did it with my son. He hated getting spanked. And by God's grace, we were able to discipline him and did it right a lot of the time. I say all the time right, but most of the time I say we did it right. Even when we resisted, we found ways to actually win, and He's better for it. He loved us for it. He was trained and instructed through it, and then obviously that's the goal. So I would say we're human, right? And a kid is freaking out, just straight ticking us off. We're human. We get frustrated. So what do we do? Well, I would say get ahead of that battle, get ahead of that confrontation, and make sure you're close to Jesus. Make sure you're believing in the gospel. Make sure make sure you're in the Word. Make sure you're remembering the love that God has for you, because it was when we were sinners that He went to the cross and died for us. Let that be a living reality that actually fuels your day, is who Jesus is and what He's done for you, so that when those battles come and the little midget demon arises, it was this cute little kid, and then all of a sudden the crazy kid shows up and is freaking out, kicking, screaming, pounding on your door, when you need a break or whatever. I think you win that battle a little more often when you're soaking in the gospel. When you're actually living and breathing the Word of God and who Jesus is and what He's done. And so give yourself a fighting chance, because otherwise, oh, Jesus, get this kid out of my way, lock yourself in the bathroom, and just cool down, right? But maybe when we're soaking in the gospel, we're actually full of the Spirit, able to exercise and bear the fruits of the Spirit, like patience, more often. You know what I'm saying? So it's hugely important, I think, for us as parents. Timeouts. Got some people are like, nah, we don't spank, we do timeouts. Okay, but there may be a time and a place for timeouts. I think there are. But I would espouse that it's not the best or the primary form of discipline. And here's the reason why we would say that. When they're disobeying, their sin has what? Separated them, right? They're separated from themselves. They're going away from Christ, not toward Christ, and away from you and the way you're instructing them as a parent. And so their sin has separated them from fellowship with you and God, and timeouts communicate that the consequence of their sin is further separation rather than reconciliation. And what we do with our kids' disobedience, aka their sin, is to bring reconciliation and not further separation. And so I just think it sends that message. There's a time for timeouts, I think, sometimes, but I think if that's a primary form of discipline and message you're sending to your kids, I don't think it's good, because it reinforces the consequence of your sin is further separation, and you want to bring them in. And I think that's important. It also communicates that they have to kind of suffer for a time. You did this, you go stick in your room by yourself and put your nose in the corner, or whatever you do, right? Stick your nose to the wall or whatever, and you stay there, or sit in your room by yourself, and you learn your lesson. And it just gets almost like you have to do some penance for your sin. Like, I screwed up, okay, now I got to suffer by myself, and that's not really gospel either, right? It's not gospel. We don't have to do penance for our sin. Let's bring them in. Let's bring reconciliation. Let's bring them to the cross. Let's reinforce the gospel. Yes, you screwed up. Yes, you're a sinner. God still loves you. He forgives your sins. So do I. Let's come back together and let's learn and grow and change. Is that not what we're all doing with our sin, hopefully? Let's do that with our kids as well. And I think sometimes timeouts just sends a different message. I'm not saying don't ever do timeouts. I'm saying if that's what you're banking on for your sole source of method for disciplining, I think that's not going to be great. I think taking away kids' stuff can sometimes be really good, right? Because why? Our kids fixate on their stuff, their Buzz Lightyear or their video games when they get a little older, or whatever their thing is. It's like it's idolatry. It's idolatry at like the youngest level. And so sometimes you have to help your kid and help your kid help himself by taking the idol out, removing it. You are worshiping, but is that it? Is that it? This is what you get not getting this thing anymore. No, let's have the discussion and let's communicate however well you can at whatever age. We want to worship Jesus. He is better than all these other things. Sorry, Buzz Lightyear is awesome, but an idol is what? An idol is elevating a good thing beyond its place and making it an ultimate thing, right? How do we contextualize that gospel to your 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old child? So I think dealing with idols, you can actually do that. Begin to do that now. Don't think you're going to, I'll do that when You know, they take their SAT, you know, designation, they're real smart, you know? Just do it now, contextualize that message and that gospel for your kids. So that's a little bit more on discipline with methods. We hit it there and here. If you guys have more questions about what we do Q&A, you know, fire away. But other than that, Anne's going to deal with schooling, and then we're going to, what?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit, one more thing that is really common in how we train our kids to disobey us. This is really common in the toddler preschool years that a lot of people do. So I just wanted to kind of help us to think about it. And that is teaching our kids to disobey us in little things like, here's an example. You're walking with your daughter and someone says, hi, and you say, oh, can you say hi to Jen? They can, they physically are able. So maybe you say hi to Jen, and they disobey you, okay? They disobey you. You don't really care maybe necessarily if they say hi, but they just disobeyed you and it's over. You do it again, you maybe do that 4 times. At Target, you're checking out, oh, can you say thank you? They don't. So you've taught them all day that it's okay to disobey you. The point is not that I'm saying freak out right then, bat all of the wills. Choose it though. If you're going to tell your child to do something, have them obey it. Or don't tell them to do it. Because what you're reinforcing to your toddler and then to your preschooler is that it's okay to obey you sometimes. And it's okay to disobey you sometimes, and there's no consequences. That's a really easy thing. I mean, I think most parents have done that. You tell them to come here, and they stay there. Come on, come. You're telling them, and then you go and get them. Okay, so they disobeyed you. There's little things like that where your kids, toddler, preschool age, are going to disobey you all day long, and you're literally reinforcing that that's okay. So think it through. If you care that your child greets someone, if that's important to you and you want to train them to do it, then train them to do it. But if you don't care, do not say hi to so-and-so, because you're literally saying it's okay to disobey me all day. So you can say something instead of like, just hold their hand and say hi or whatever. You don't have to ask them to greet them if it's not important to you. But if it is important to you, if you want to train your child to greet, then train your child. Do you see what I'm saying? There's these little... What?
I was just saying amen.
Yeah, there's these little things that we're doing it. John Piper, who I love, wrote an essay a couple years ago about there was a boy in Santa Rosa, California, who was shot by police officers because he had a toy gun, and the police officers said that they told him to put it down 3 or 4 times and he didn't, and they shot him, and it wasn't a real gun, it was a toy gun, so it was a tragedy. But the police officers followed every protocol, and it looked like a real gun. He had taken the orange cap off the front. If you have boys, you know that all. So anyway, they thought it was a real gun. They thought their lives were in danger. They killed him. As the police officers recounted that they had told him to do it, and he disobeyed. John Piper was really struck by that, about how parents nowadays are training their children to be shot. He was on a plane. A kid had their little iPod, and the stewardess said, you know, you have to turn off your electronics. Walked on, and he said that the mom didn't tell him to. She came back, said you have to do it, didn't. Came back a 3rd time, took it, gave it to the mom, and went and sat in her seat. The boy took it from the mom and kept playing. And John Piper said that mother is literally training that son to be shot someday. Parents, and that's kind of the arbitrary obedience. It's these little things, you're just training them all day long to not obey you, and that does translate to teachers, to other peers. They don't obey. They just don't see the need for authority. They've been taught constantly that obedience is optional. So just those little things, like think it through. Think about what you're willing to stand up for. If you don't care if they greet somebody, then don't say it. Don't let them disobey you, but care about what you're going to tell them to do. And then, like Jesse said, fight that battle and win.
People ask all the time, what's the biggest thing about discipline? How do I do it? Well, what's like the one thing? I would say consistency. Whatever it is for you, just be consistent about it. Because yes, it's hard, and obviously when it's hard, and it's like, do we really want to have the battle about whether I say hi to this person or whether I do this because they're freaking out in this shopping cart or whatever it is? Obviously it's hard. It's just so much easier to pacify them with something. Get it? But it only gets easier the more consistent you are. The more you inconvenience yourself to be consistent and toe the line as much as you can, the easier it gets. You progress and you get better. So consistency is huge. I'll share an example just super duper quick. What was it? Just this week, beginning of this week. Our 6-year-old comes up, Dad, Ava slapped me. Ava's a 4-year-old girl, slapped me. I'm like, wow, okay. Ava comes up, and she's like, and I come to find out, Ava always slaps him. And he's just been putting up with it. He's just been putting up with it. And then the 10-year-old comes, she's like, yeah, she slaps him like all day long. They'll be down on the road and playing with kids. She'll just like whack him in the chest is the big thing. She's not so nice, she's smacking him in the face usually, I think. But it's like in the chest. And I'm like, wow. I felt bad for the 6-year-old. I'm like, this kid's been putting up with this constantly, and finally he's had enough. And I'm like, okay, Ava, you are not allowed. Listen, eye contact. You are not allowed to hit him for any reason. Do you understand? And I'm forceful, right? I'm not speaking like nothing cute about it. Do you understand? You cannot slap him. Okay. All right, sorry. Now, I'm not into big ultimatums, right? But I'm kind of like, do you understand? If you do slap him, that is you're disobeying me, right? So if you slap him, you're disobeying me. You understand that, right? Yeah. Okay. And we know that there's consequences for disobeying me, right? Short of a full-on ultimatum, but yes, I know that. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. It's not, okay. Blah, blah, blah. I swear we could have counted to 6. She slapped him in the chest. Right in our room in front of us. Couldn't believe it. We were shocked. And Ava was shocked. She's like, I did it. Oh my gosh, she was so shocked at herself. It literally, she's been doing it so much it became a habit. She like, right in the chest. In our room, we could have counted to 5. And I was shocked, and she's shocked. Oh, and she realizes there's going to be consequences. I'm like, wow, okay. You know, yeah. And I'm like, we just talked about this. Like, you know, and I'm trying to fight back the, why did you do that? Because you don't want to, we know why she did it. She's a rotten sinner, you know, so you don't want to berate your kids. Why would you do that? We know why. They're sinners. Let's not be shocked about it. But it was like, we just talked about that, right? Yeah, I forgot. You know, and she's like, So I'm like, oh my goodness, I got it. She called me on my bluff, man. I mean, I was like, let's do this. And I hate spanking her, but we did it. We talked through it. After the spanking, it's a good long conversation about how, you know, I love her and, you know, why we have to do this and how Jesus loves her and she's forgiven and she doesn't feel bad about it anymore, but it's important to obey going forward, blah, 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 right? Couldn't believe it though, she did it, like literally, I had to be consistent. Now let me counter that with, it was this morning. Lucas was like, so that was like 3 days ago, right? This morning, Lucas, or no, it was Ava. It was yesterday? Last night?
That was yesterday.
No, it was this morning. I was in LA yesterday. So it was this morning, Ava comes up to my room crying. Dad, she had to confess. Like, I think her brother's like, you go tell Dad. Or did you tell her to go tell me? Go tell Dad. Dad, I slapped Lucas again. I can't believe, man. And I'm like, she's kind of upset. She knows she's going to be in trouble and this and that. I kind of worked through, well, what did Lucas do? And, you know, Lucas provoked her, really, is what happened. Okay. And, but you know what? There's a time to give grace too and to communicate through grace. Like, you know what? Sometimes I sin too. But you know what? There's grace to be had. And you know what? We're going to give you grace right now. We're going to give you grace in this instant. Now, you might say, well, what happened to being consistent, right? That's different than just being like, I'm so tired of dealing with this past fight. Take this and just please get out of it. I don't care that you slapped her. Go. This trees. I'm trying to wake up. It was a conversation, a pointed conversation to teach them what getting something you don't deserve means. She deserved a spanking, clearly. We just discussed it 3 days prior. She just got one 3 days prior. In this case, grace, getting something you don't deserve. So there's time for that as well.
Yeah, and the consistency piece, discipline or spank on things that are not due to childishness or immaturity. We're talking about disciplining for disobedience, primarily. People always ask me when my kids were little, I would start out with one thing, you know, when we first start spanking or training them. If I say no and they keep doing it, that's what I'm disciplining on. Like, that's the hill I'm dying on this week. That's all I'm gonna, you know, if they spill their milk, if they scream at if they do immature, childish things, they're not gonna get disciplined for it. I can teach them the right way to do it, but what we are going to focus on, you know, would be saying no, or if they don't come when I say come, because that's a danger, that's a safety issue. So as they're small, kind of like a funnel, the rules, there's not that many. It's if mom says no and if mom says come. And then we kind of add on to that. So it's not so overwhelming, and I can focus on making sure I'm consistent on those things, and I'm always consistent on those things. So just because your child does something that makes you mad, angry, or upset, doesn't necessarily mean it's a sin that they need to be dealt with. Kids can be klutzy or annoying, but that's not disobedience. So choose those battles really carefully and make sure that you're disciplining for specific disobediences. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about schooling. I just want to say there's no Christian way to educate your children. Your kids go to public school, mind you. That doesn't mean I'm not a Christian, and if you homeschool, you are. We've done homeschooling, we've done private Christian, and we've done public school. I think the main thing that we want to kind of give out to you as parents, since a lot of you, your kids aren't in school, just think about it. Kind of think about all the options. Be wise in your decisions, but actually have some thought into it. Kids are all different. Some kids might need to be homeschooled. Some kids might need to go to private school. Some kids need to go to the public school. It's going to depend on a whole bunch of those things. Different values maybe stand out to you as more important. So when you're asking yourself and you're evaluating your different choices, you're going to think through different things. So for example, like as a family, we value independence over interdependence. So schooling outside of our home is something that we value. We want to teach our kids about authority and other people different than us, and we're pretty confident in the time that we spend with them. So since we value independence, school was going to be a choice for us. We value mission. That's something that we talk to our kids about a lot. We're blessed to have really good schools where we are. So public school for us here, that was our decision. It aligns with our family's views of parenting and our different philosophies. So figure out what yours are. If you're a family that really values interdependence and community above everything else, maybe that's why you're naturally going to homeschool, or you're naturally, if you really value independence and community in a different way, and you really want a Christian school, there's going to be different things, is what I'm saying. But figure that out. Have a reason. If somebody asks you why you're schooling your child, hopefully you can articulate that. You've actually thought it through. You've thought what is best for them, and you've done it. I know that there's costs associated with different things and different stuff like that, but if you have a conviction about something and that's really important to you, I feel like you'll be able to work that out. Some people, they just really need to do Christian school, and somehow on paper they cannot afford it at all, and it works out, and God provides that for their family. Different things to kind of help you think through what school you should do. It's just questions as you get to that place. What are your goals in education and extracurricular activities? That's kind of more for high school or as they get older, but there's pros and cons to different things. What can you afford? How could you afford the schooling option that you want? Who do you want your children to be friends with? How involved do you want to be in your community or not? There's some people really want to be involved in their communities, be involved in that type of thing. Public school would be a good option for that. Then thinking through with your child, how will they respond to each schooling choice? There could be a time, my youngest had to go to a couple different schools, and he needed that. He needed to go, there was a time that we had to pull him, he went to a different school, just was kind of struggling with reading. We were able to, for a year, send him to a private school that really helped him feel like he was, it was a small classroom, so they didn't divide up into reading groups, so suddenly he wasn't in the low reading group. So what do you know? He's just as good as a reader as everybody else. Really changed his thought around in second grade. When we moved here, we were kind of worried about it. We had a great teacher, a Christian teacher who was super encouraging to another one of my sons who just felt like he was really stupid. He honestly would think that. And he just didn't learn, or hadn't learned at that point, that if you do your homework and turn it in on time, you're just as smart as everyone else that's turning in their homework. But it was hard for him to kind of get that for a little while. So his teacher would hand him back the homework and say, you know what, I'm not taking this. You can do better than that. I know you can. And he was like shocked, and she was like, turn it in whenever you can finish that. Didn't give him any less, but it took him a couple weeks, and so he wanted to please her and do it right. And she really helped him discover a passion he had for science and different things. teachers can really have a great influence on our kid. They can also have a bad influence on our children. So it's just, we've had really good experiences, thankfully, pretty much every year in all different areas of schooling. So I just want to say there's no wrong way. If you feel like maybe public school is what you have, but you're totally scared and stressed out about it. I'm a Christian mom with kids in public school, and they are not out with Satan worshipers. You know, it's just different. Go see the schools, check it out. Check out all your options. There's great homeschool co-ops. I know that there's families in this church that homeschool.
Yeah, there's the point is there's a lot of good options, and I know that the church has done a disservice too. You find some churches where like that, I've heard of a church that there's not like one family in it that public schools. I mean, it's almost like, and it's just become this culture, and like if you did, you were whatever, other than worldly or whatever, you know. So it's just you do a disservice to do it that way, or public school only, and you're not. You do something bad if you homeschool. It's just know who you are, what works for you, what works for your kid, what works for your kid on an individual basis. Every kid's different. Again, every community's different. I think my biggest reason why I think I like the fact that my kids are in public school is it just provides so much opportunity for real discipleship that is more than just theory, right? You can theoretically teach your kid about evolution from a book, or going through whatever, but you can also have them come home and say the teacher in the class is discussing evolution as truth. Guess what? You've got his ear. Like, it's a big opportunity to speak truth into his life. And when he sees kids do something, guess what? You got a huge opportunity to disciple him through actual real life issues that I've found. Now, if we weren't that engaged and we just checked out, well, guess what? That school and those teachers and those kids are going to be the primary influencers, right? But you got to work that much harder to be engaged. I like that, though. I like the real. I mean, he's engaged. It's more than theory. He's living it. So you get to bring the gospel to bear on real life issues. That's the biggest reason for me. But teachers on. Any questions before we finish?
I'm gonna ask a tough question because I want to get my bang for my buck.
Oh, okay.
Just giving you a hard time. What do you do when your kid's like, you're like, all right, drop your trousers. You're getting whacked, with a switch. And he says, up yours. Like, I mean, like my dad was like, well, I'm about to turn up the volume on like whatever punishment's coming down the road, but first you're gonna get spanked, and so it's like, I don't know, what do you guys do? Just curious.
Yeah, so I just didn't want to get too gnarly, but if you're gonna ask. With Knox, Knox was super resisting, and
Well, I would say too, we started spanking pretty young.
Right.
To kind of establish the pattern. Like, honestly, when I felt like they understood that I was saying no and they disobeyed me, like around 1, we would spank them on a diaper. I don't ever spank a bear, but I do like underwear on or something like that always. So, I would say that. Like, it's different to implement spanking with like a 6-year-old than it is like a 1-year-old. They're kind of used to it, and also we do like 1 hard spank. Sometimes our kids have done something so gnarly that they've gotten 3 spanks. But the point is not like we want you to have this huge bruise or something like that. It's
right.
Stop. You are being corrected, and then we're gonna address it. So it's a little bit.
I would say if you wait too long, too long to start, you're absolutely going to have that battle, and that's not going to be a hell week. That's going to be like a hell year. I mean, or whatever. Yeah. Sorry for the expression, but So I would say with like Knox, my oldest, or with one of our kids, I should stop singling him out, but he gave us the most resistance at some point during, I guess I would say, the hell week, and so it was we weren't going to, otherwise, we just wanted this to be a calm deal, and now, and with every other kid it kind of was, and now it is with our youngest, you put your hands on the wall, we're not fighting about this is going to happen, and they just know that now, because I've won the hell week, if you will, or we have. So it's a calm, you're putting your hands on the wall, and you're sticking your butt out and you're getting spanked. Not because I'm angry and I hate you.
Sometimes they'll put their hands down and I won't spank their hand, but I'll say, it's gonna hurt so much more if I spank your hand. And once they have I do it pretty quick. Like I don't, it's not like a 2 minute. They're like, you know.
So Knox wasn't having that during Hell Week, right? So with Knox, with one of my children, I would sit down and I would put him.
I can do it to me.
I would sit down. I would put him here. I would bend him over one leg, and he'd be like arching his back and all that. And I'd put my other leg over his leg, and I was winning the battle. It was just period. And I wasn't angry. I wasn't I was still calm, but I'm winning that battle. I'm just going to. And I did not have to do that long until it was this.
Alright.
Didn't have to do it long,
It's not like
but I had to win at some point, and that's how we did it. He was not going to arch his back, and guess what?
Yeah, no, because you guys said like, you know,
Don't call CPS on me, all right?
hands are no. I'm just saying like hands are for loving, and you know the spanking is like for the discipline. But you know, that's a real scenario, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's careful that because the goal of the discipline is it is a loving thing too, right? It's just yes, use it something, but
Also with how we say that we start smaller, kind of picture like a funnel in your head. It's really wide at the top, so when we start disciplining and like doing the spanking and stuff, I feel like it is every day, all day, especially for some of my kids. But as they get older, the amount kind of gets narrower and narrower until it's like, oh my gosh, it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since I've had to spank you at all. And I think that's the consistency piece. They just know. And we do have 4 kids, so it has trickled down. I've heard my second son tell my third son once, when he was about 1, they mean it. That spank is coming. Stop. I've heard them help each other. So that definitely comes out. And with the boys, with their sister, I mean, you know, they've cried in their room when other siblings are getting spanked. They don't like it, but and they help each other not get that. so it does help. Honestly, I feel like your first one just be gnarly, and then it trickles down and it's helpful. So, but we stop spanking when they're a little bit older. Like my 10-year-old or something, I wouldn't spank my 10-year-old or my 14-year-old, obviously. And like I said, I don't feel like humiliating them, like they need to be naked and stuff like that. And it's not really about the pain and the whole thing. It's just that you're stopping what you're doing. This is how we're going to correct it. So it does, for me, and how we spank, it really just works best when they're young.
I think the fear is, oh man, they're going to grow up be all hard and bitter and angry. It really is the opposite. I mean, those that know my kids pretty well, they're as goofy and loving as could be, but pretty well behaved. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about like the balance between like, so the father being like the head of like the discipline in the household, but then like he's working all day and I'm like with my little daughter all day, so it feels like I'm the one like disciplining her all day. So how do you like balance that? I don't know.
Oh, you are. I probably have given 75% of the spankings and stuff like that in the house. But like Jesse said, I am softer to them. So I think that it sets the tone. There's just, you're the dad in the house and in our house, and I think that's kind of how it's meant to be. It's different. I mean, I definitely have never said, wait till your dad gets home. That's not fair to Jesse. It's not fair to him. So I don't agree with that at all. I mean, deal with it then. The point of it is they disobeyed. I want them to stop disobeying. I want them to know that they can't do this. I want to make them repent, turn, and be reconciled. So I have to spank them. So Jesse kind of sets a tone in that he helps determine the spanking. He was the one that primarily was like, it's time for spankings. I mean, I see them as like a baby, and he's like, no, it's time for spanking. So he helps with that. He did help kind of with how hard to spank. Like he actually would be like, show me, like how, because I was pretty soft. So he's like, no, you gotta do it harder. So I was like spanking him to see for stuff like that. That's what he said he was doing, but
The reality is, I would say every opportunity there's an opportunity. But if you have to discipline in that way when dad is home, because you almost a day, dad's got to do it.
yeah,
Weekends,
so Jesse's home, Dad
evenings,
does it.
and and that helps to reinforce. And I think also, you have to back your wife up, you know, they have to know in other ways, other than with the paddle, they have to know to not disrespect your wife, to obey your wife, that your expectation is, you gotta defend your wife, and you do that verbally, you do that before you leave in the morning, and you know, however you do that. You know, obviously the kid's super young, it's tough, but just gotta do it in other ways. Anything else?
This is obviously further down the road than for a lot of us, but for you guys, the older kids, obviously you're not spanking them, but like you said, timeouts aren't.
I just
good.
punch now.
Yeah. But restrictions kind of almost like timeouts.
We don't do timeouts really. We're just not fans of them in general. I do timeout, like a timeout would be if somebody was emotionally, like they're just breaking down. It's a timeout, not like a punishment, but it's like go pray or go, you know, like they just need time to collect themselves. But I don't do timeout for discipline because I don't understand how it's disciplining them really. So for my older kids, it would be being grounded, restriction, losing privileges.
Losing privileges, you know, like whatever it is. I mean, the issues, the real life issues, like my kids now, my two older kids, my 13 and my 10-year-old, now they have iPhones, because I just got them in December. So there's all kinds of rules and engagement discussion around that, and you know, where they've disobeyed in areas with the iPhone, they lose the iPhone. They hate that. They'd rather get a spanking any day than to get the iPhone taken away for a week, you know, or something like that, or straight sell the iPhone. I could use the money again, frankly. I'm not gonna, you know, and that was the discussion a couple weeks ago. I was like, this stupid iPhone is not gonna be an issue in my life. I'm not gonna have an issue with your iPhone. I will sell your iPhone. I'd rather have the money. It's not your iPhone anyway, it's my iPhone. So that's where we're going next. So we got it taken away for 1 week, and I'm selling the stupid thing and give them a flip phone next. You know, just stuff like that. That matters to them. But it's the discussion. It's just, it's more of a discussion, you know, and then we'll call timeout from your iPhone, it's timeout, you know, whatever. Just take away privileges.
I feel like in our experience too, our kids, the willful disobedience of you can't do this and then they just do it, they've kind of grown out of that. When you have the small kids and that's all day long, you don't realize that it honestly ends. You know, if you've been really consistent, it really does. They just sort of stop doing that, honestly. But it's more, I feel like as they get older, it's more training them and guiding them of making appropriate decisions, because it's, you know, I don't know, like not doing their homework. There's natural consequences too for the homework. Jesse talked about not for the honor roll. I do check his homework and stuff, probably a little bit more than Jesse, but if there's, his goal in life is to get a college scholarship. That's like what he really, really wants. So that's going to be a natural consequence for him if he doesn't do his schoolwork. So we try to help him and set him up. But, you know, even in middle school, we've talked to him about, if this is what you feel like the best you can get is an F, then that's the best you can get. I mean, we're not going to punish him for that. But, you know, I don't think that he thinks that. And we can talk to him like, this is your goal. Teachers, especially in middle school, they'll help you. His math teacher, he was a little struggling with, had sent out an email to parents, algebra's new for all the 8th graders. I'm available every single lunch. I'm available at every single study hall. You know, it's like, go if you need help. Do this. You have all the tools necessary, different things. There's more natural consequences, I feel like, as they get older. You know, if they're on their phone at night, they have to charge it. They're not allowed to charge it in their room at night. It has to be in our room, so they're done with it. When we're not really monitoring it, and the computer's downstairs. If they took the phone into their room, Jesse will sometimes just go into their room at like midnight. If it's there, then it's done. They don't get it. That's happened once or twice. So.
You know, we all learn from our mistakes, right? Sometimes our best moments of growth and improvement are after failing pretty bad. So you just got to walk through that with our kids. And I mean, I just got a traffic violation, right? Talking on the phone, which I won't get into it, and I could excuse in a million and one ways and make myself look better than I am. But I was talking on the phone, and 2 cop cars on me, boom, you know. And then, I mean, it was just horrible, right? So now I got to pay this ticket and this and that and the other thing. And because I had to pay a ticket, and I know how much it is going to actually cost us, I'm not even looking at my phone, and I'm for sure wearing my seatbelt way more than I ever was, and I'm way more aware, you know, and it's because of the consequences, and I'm you know, so like when Knox goes out and maybe he blows it when he's at the movie theater with his friends. Well, all right. I mean, what am I going to do? No, I'm not going to spank you. We're going to have a conversation about it. We're going to bring the gospel to bear on it. It doesn't mean there is no consequences because he's 13. Consequences, next time the answer is no. And we're going to work on building trust and showing growth in that area in other ways. Will he ever be able to do that again? Yeah, it's probably in pretty short order, you know, because having it taken away is part of what helps to motivate him to grow in obviously what he was lacking. But you've got to bring the gospel to bear to help him to see that. And so, privileges and stuff like that. Yeah.
How did you handle discipline in public? Did you just like remove yourself from the situation and deal with it at home, or how did you handle that?
Yeah.
Depends who you're asking.
No, I would never, I can only think of a few times, like where I've been in a grocery store with a cart full of stuff, and this was in Washington when we lived there and it's raining, and like I really didn't want to go back. But yeah, I would leave my cart and go home and spank them or go to the car, taking the child out that the entire time was screaming, "Please no, I don't want a spanking," at the top of their lungs. Like I thought I was going to get arrested. But yeah, it depends what they did. I mean, so when they're young like that, if I'm spanking if I say no and you keep doing it, I never really spanked for like whining, you know. They're bothering you, okay? That's different than they're disobeying. So really figuring out, and then, I don't know. I mean, what would be like an example? Kind of maybe give me, and then I could see it.
It happens all the time. We're at the park and he keeps stealing the other children's toys. Like full on walking up to a kid and taking the toy that he has.
Yeah.
So then you'd leave.
I would leave, but I mean, it also depends on the age. So like if developmentally, like let's say they're under 2 and they really, I don't think that they really can share, I would usually try to, here's one thing too, to like take it a step back, I try to always set my kids up for success. If we're gonna go to the park, my kid is gonna have an awesome snack and they're gonna have toys. Because it's not fair to have a 1.5-year-old that has to eat a dried piece of kale and everyone else has something totally awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just being real. You're setting them up. Like I don't even want to do that. My husband wouldn't either. Okay, so I'm trying to set them up for success.
Or you take them to the killer park and all the kids have the killer toys. Well, of course you're gonna steal the toys. You don't have nothing.
So I'm trying to set them up for success. If I've done everything to set them up for success and I feel like they're just disobeying me. So like if my child had no toys and everyone else has these cool toys, I can understand why they're trying to take the toys. Okay, so I think that I would be able to like have grace in the situation. Are they choosing to willfully disobey me, or are they just taking the toys because they really want the toys? Do you see what I'm saying? And if they're literally just taking the toys because they really want the toys, and if they had their own, it's not an issue if they're just really trying to disobey me, which is around 2, 3, that's what I'm really focusing on, then I would probably handle it differently. I mean, I would leave the park. I would maybe just leave, like we gotta go, take them somewhere else, get down in the sand and like play, you know, because it is hard to kind of discern the childishness from disobedience. So I do try to always set my kids up for success. I don't do play dates at nap time. I mean, why? They're just gonna, and I had 3 sons. A lot of my friends had daughters. So already, my kids were way more aggressive. You know, if my kid takes a toy from your daughter and hurts her, and he's not trying to hurt her, I'm probably not gonna spank him because he didn't mean to hurt her, and he's just being 18 months older. He's just being 2 and he just took the toy. But some parents, they're embarrassed of the situation, and they literally take it out on their child, and they discipline them for something that they weren't disobeying. Do you see what I'm saying? So really, really having the discernment of what is actually happening and dealing with it then. So if you set your kid up, if you totally set them up for success and you feel like they're disobeying you, then yeah, I'd leave and spank them.
At the end of the day, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a 2-year-old, and so you're gonna, how are you gonna correct them, right? And I would remove the kid, because going to the park is a privilege. Having an iPhone is a privilege. Going to the park is a privilege, stealing toys and just disobeying the whole time, removing the kid and leaving and losing the privilege. The kid wants to stay, well, you know, this is how it's going to be, go home and do whatever. You probably won't have to do that forever because he's going to learn. Our kids are developing if you teach them. Okay, so they start stealing toys less and less and less. You get to stay longer and longer and longer and longer until it's not a problem. But honestly, I think one of the reasons why it didn't, like, we were scheduled. I mean, that was our philosophy. And one of the benefits of being scheduled in terms of naps and eating was we did things on our time. It was scheduled. So if we're going to the park, we're going to the park because the kid just woke up from a nap. He's as happy as can be. He just had his meal because it was time for the meal. He's as full as we could be because he ate fully. It wasn't a little nibble because he whined and we were wondering about if the kid was hungry enough. So the kid's full, slept. You go to the park, you go to the store. The kid's happy. You just averted a bunch of chaos because we ate and we slept at a regimented time. And that was just our philosophy. It's not biblical, like Angie said, but it works pretty dang well. And so we didn't have a lot of those, oh my gosh, is the kid hungry? Oh, he's so tired, but we got to do this. It was pretty regimented. And that's why it just worked best for us. I had probably only a couple times really in a store where the kid was about to have, like, having a tantrum, right? Kids didn't have a ton of tantrums, but there's a couple times I can remember, and honestly, there's something powerful about a flick. Now you're gonna think I'm totally weird, but I got pretty strong fingers, and I swear, if I flicked the kid like in the side, it like sobered them up, you know, because they're freaking out, and I literally flicked them like real hard in the side. I'll be honest with my boys, I did a couple in the cheek, like, you know, like always looking like, listen, they're like, what just happened? Like, I was so concerned with, I didn't get, you know, the whatever, and just that like totally sobered them up, and I had their attention. I'm like, we are not doing this now, stop it now. And they went from the toy to what the heck just happened to my cheek or my side, and it was done with, and I didn't have to leave. But not that I'm encouraging them, just saying.
Wanting stuff in a store, what really worked for me was we do, when my kids ask for something, I always say, yes, you can have that on your birthday or Christmas, whatever is closer. So it always worked. And then when their birthday or Christmas comes, I would tell them, you get to pick any 3 things, and they generally get that. I mean, within reason, you know, if it's like, if we can afford it or whatever. But so my kids now, like, they don't cry for stuff because I literally tell them they can have everything they want at their birthday or Christmas. I mean, honestly, it works really well. So if we go to Target or we go anywhere, Ava, everything that she sees, can I have that for my birthday? Yeah. Can I have that for my birthday? Yeah, yeah. You can literally have anything in the store. When it's time for your birthday, you get to pick 3. So it honestly, it alleviates stuff. I mean, we start that when they're really little. Okay, if they wanted something and they're crying for it, I would say, do you want that? Yeah. Okay, for your birthday. Your birthday is in a few months. I want, you know, maybe the first couple times, but I've literally trained them. So if you go shopping with me, you will literally hear Ava the entire time, can I have that for my birthday? Can I have that for my birthday? Can I have that for my birthday? And the answer is always yes. And then at her birthday, she can pick 3. It honestly, it worked pretty well for all of us.
Jedi mind trick.
Jedi mind trick. One of our sons waited. I mean, he started asking for this motorcycle, like, ride-on thing for like 4 months. He asked for it every single time we're at Target. He could not wait to have it. He asked if he could have it every single day, and every single day I told him, yeah, on your birthday, and on his birthday, he for sure got that thing. I mean, could you imagine if I didn't? But I think that like instilled the trust and kind of helped him see, and I don't know. So that was one way that we really, I don't have any issues with like wanting stuff in a store or things like that.
What else? Anything?
I kind of another question. So, like, do you think it's fair to expect like a 1.5-year-old to like remember the rules, or should it only be like discipline after like no, like she broke a rule and I say no, don't keep doing that, and then she keeps doing it. Do you know what I mean? Because there's some things like flicking the food off her tray, or like they're kind of childish things, but they're also like kind of a rule, or hitting, like, you know, she does it, but then I say no, and I guess I'm just still like working through those kind of things and wonder if there's like, can they be expected to like remember?
I don't think you can like blanketly say yes or no. It depends on the child and their age. It would be up to you if you feel like she did that on purpose. But you could just try it out with, you know, the food on the tray. Maybe when you know that they're going to do that, standing there the whole time, and then when you see their little hand move, grab it and
Yeah.
say, no, we don't do that. And then let go and give her the opportunity to obey you. If she chooses to disobey, I would discipline for that.
Yeah,
And give her the
there needs to
opportunity.
be clear, like, directive, I think, because, yeah.
And again, don't set them up for failure, give them the opportunity to not disobey, so maybe she's done, get that food out from in front of her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think, I'm a proponent, again, I'm a little harder, but I'm a pretty good proponent of they can comprehend far more than we give them credit for, far earlier than we think. And so, of course, so I was always a proponent of disciplining pretty young. And they're like, well, they don't even speak English yet, or they don't know what you're saying. Well, if you just flung the food off, and I grabbed your hands and I spoke to you differently than when I'm trying to make you laugh. I'm not yelling at you, but you know, I'm in a stern voice and I'm holding your hands and I'm telling you no, that we don't do that. No. They learn no like pretty quick, right? And they know that. And at some point, when they do that, or whatever it is, they learn real quick. When I do that, my butt hurts. You know? Cause and reaction. Like they get that pretty. They do get that pretty young and early. So they learn my butt hurts when I do that. They stop doing that at a pretty young age.
It's just
We'll
it's
call
hard.
CPS on.
It's just hard. You know, we love our kids so much. It's hard to spank what is a baby to you. You know, or to discipline what's a baby to you. You know, we, like Jesse said, we did do the scheduling. We were pretty sure that that was what was important to us. I had 4 kids. It never got any easier to let them cry. I didn't want to do that, but I wanted the results more. So I wanted my kids to obey more than I didn't want to spank them. And I wanted my kids, and I wanted to sleep through the night more than I didn't want to hear them cry for 5 minutes. You know, all those different things. I mean, it's hard. It's just hard. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to do it. I think that you just have to have the end goal in mind, and you know, have your husband, and you just keep telling each other why you're doing it.
Just be on the same page. So hard when you kind of clean up.
Could you do like a super short, maybe 30-second blurb of what you would say to like a 2-year-old, either before or after you're going to spank them? I'm just looking for some role play action.
So before I would spank them, okay, so let's say I told my 2-year-old, you can't throw their Legos down the stairs or something like that, and they did it. I just said, like, you can't do this, and they did it. Then I would say, okay, you chose to disobey me, you're going to come and you're going to get a spanking. I don't usually, when they know they're going to get a spanking, I feel like it's me to drag up a talk because they're so anxious to like get the spanking over, so I usually do it at the end. So then I spank them, tell them to, you know, put their hands on the wall, I give them the spank. And then I say, you know, when they're crying, I love you, and God has given you to me to take care of and to train, and one of the things that I have to train you is that you have to obey me. And you chose to disobey me, so I had to give you the consequence, which was that spanking, and I don't want to spank you, so, you know, I'm only doing it because God has told me that I have to, you know, whatever. Those type of things. You can do it really, really small of, I love you, you disobeyed me, so you got a spanking.
Yeah.
And,
I usually get them to admit that, do you know you're not supposed to do that, or did I tell you not to do that? Yeah. Or they might say no, but you have to tell, well, yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah. So did I tell you not to do that, or did you know you're not supposed to do that? Yeah. And did you do it anyway? Yeah. Is that disobedient? Did you disobey me, Mom or Dad? Yeah, I did. I just asked, I asked Ava this morning, do you think you should get a spanking for that? Yeah. Well, what? She's like, yeah. She knows. It's like, you're just talking me into it, right? Like, you're telling me. You know, just get them to understand that they screwed up and what it was. Oh, wait, I'm 2, I guess, yeah, she's 4. But anyway, you should still say, like, yeah, and then, but I agree. Most of the conversation is just reconciling them, loving them, assuring them they do not need to carry guilt or shame over this. They are forgiven. Jesus took all of that, and He loves you. He's not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. We're good now. Let's hug, and let's go.
Some,
Get them an ice cream.
and depending on your child, some will reconcile and they'll be guilty and they'll be sad, and some will be angry and really mad at you and they don't want to reconcile with you. So if you have a child who wants to reconcile and is like crying and is so sorry and wants to hug you, wants the comfort, that's a little bit easier. If you have a child that is really angry at you and is like totally in their heart super rebellious against you, did not appreciate being trained in the way they should go, that is a little bit harder. I don't like make them hug me or like do anything weird like say you love me or something, like that's not I think that's super weird. So
But we're not gonna let them be angry and distant and cold and disrespectful either.
yeah, I let them have their emotions for like a second. I mean, it depends. Like this, one of my children was just really strong-willed, and they just had to like assert their will too. So I already broke their will with the spanking. I don't need to keep doing it, you know? So I would just like kind of let them have their emotional space, and then maybe, you know, just kind of reiterate, like if I feel like they still have an attitude, just go back in there like, I love you and I have to obey God. God told me that I have to train you, and that's why I did it. I don't like spanking you. I don't want you to be sad or mad at me. I have to do this. Just like when I sin, God has to correct me. I had to correct you. And when you're a daddy, you will have to correct your children too. And you know how, you know, if next time let's pray. If you know that you can't obey me, next time pray and ask God to help you obey so that you don't get a spanking.
So I told Ava this morning, I was like, well, what did Lucas do? Well, he was being really annoying and he kicked me out, blah, 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 blah. Well, what should you have done when he did that? Instead of smacking him in the chest? What should you have done when he did that? She was crying. She was like, told him how I felt. Like, you just go to your guts and tell you how you feel. It's like, yes. And then we don't want to create a tattling culture either, but we're like, if you can't do the wrong thing because he did the wrong thing, you need to do the right thing and go do something else. Or if he's wronging you, you can tell us. It's our job to correct it. Anyway, if anybody has any other questions or discussions, we're happy to hang out, but otherwise we want to respect your time. We're already over, so you probably have babysitters, right? Or keep them babysitting, go on a date. Let me pray for you real quick. God, we just thank you for this time, this discussion. It's such a big issue and a high calling that you have called us to as parents. We give you thanks for it, but we certainly need your help. And so I pray that these parents here would just remain in a posture of dependency on you, that they would rely on you, that they would soak in the gospel daily, that it would be the fuel that just fuels their engine for how they go about raising their kids day in and day out, that they would just be infatuated by who you are and how much you love them, that the result would be just an unconditional gospel kind of love for everyone else around them, including their kids and their spouses. I pray for strong marriages, God. I pray for good conversation among these families as they go from here, that they would just act upon maybe perhaps the things that you have ministered to them, and just pray that they would parent out of the power and the strength that you supply them. And we pray for our kids, God, and ultimately we want them to follow Jesus. We don't want them to marry tools. We don't want them to do drugs, any of those things. We want them to follow and love Jesus and worship Him more than anything else in this world. And so that's such a heavy task you've given to us to help influence them. So really that's just something you got to do in their hearts. So we pray, God, that you would change their hearts and that you would use our feeble attempts to do it. And we pray it together in Jesus' name. Amen. So thanks for letting us speak to you guys. We love you guys.